How's it going, everybody? It's Zach. Saturday afternoon. Last night, Friday evening, I watched Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I got the DVD. It was like $6 and some change, brand new from eBay. And I had memories of watching this movie. It was probably on TV, probably back in the early 90s, I would say. And recently I had ordered a Mad Max game for the Xbox, and it made me want to rewatch the movie again. So I'm just going to go over the movie, and this review does contain spoilers. So, movie starts off. Mel Gibson is out in the desert, and he's entering Barter Town. Barter Town is like this settlement uh, where people live, and he goes in and talks to this guy, and says that he wants to barter or something, and this guy like says, "Okay, whatever, I'll take you to see somebody." So they take all they take all his weapons. There's like a weapons check. It's kind of funny actually. He's just like keeps putting more and more weapons down on this table. There's like a pile of weapons when he's done like unloading everything off of his person. So then they take him upstairs, and he meets Tina Turner, whose name is Auntie in the movie. So then she basically orders all these guys to attack him, and he like basically defeats all them. And then she's like, "Okay, you passed the test." And then she's like, "We're gonna have you fight Master Blaster." Okay. So then they show like sort of the heart of the city, which is like this, somewhat underground area where there's all these like pigs being kept, because they explain that they use the methane from the pig shit to supply energy to the city and to like run all these vehicles. So like uh you know I guess Mel Gibson goes down there because there's also like slaves working down there, like helping to operate this. It's very like industrial kind of area where they're somehow like I don't know, turning the pig shit into energy for their city and their vehicles. I don't know. So Mel Gibson goes down there, and like he has an interaction with Master Blaster, and like whatever. And then fast forward a little bit, and then it's time for them to fight. So and I wanted to mention too, Master Blaster is two people. Blaster is like this big, hulking man who wears like a metal helmet. And then Master is like a little person who basically sits on his shoulders and kind of gives the orders. And the actor who actually plays Master was a dwarf. So, fast forward, it's time to go into Thunderdome, which is this big, metal cage basically that's kind of like a, circular, or, it's like a big metal sphere. And it's where people do battle. And the rules of it are like, two men enter, one man leave. So that all the people from the town are all like, basically they all climb all over the outside of the cage to watch the fight. And then there's like this announcer who was like wearing a cape and had a scepter, and that was like a very like somewhat corny, like theatrical part of the movie that I observed when I was watching it. So Mel Gibson and Blaster are like, they're on like tethers to begin with. Like, so they're actually kind of like suspended in the air inside of Thunderdome, and they're fighting. They're and like they can use weapons too. So like all the members of the crowd have like weapons, and they're like they got weapons like outstretched for like the combatants to grab and use. So the fight's pretty intense, pretty crazy fight scene. I think Blaster is kind of winning for a little bit. You know, he has like this huge like scimitar looking weapon, and then Mel Gibson grabs a chainsaw. That worked for a little while, and then it stopped working. And then Mel Gibson has this whistle on him because when he was down there in the pit, the pig shit pit, he realized that Blaster hates loud, high pitched noises. So he's got this whistle, and he's able to retrieve his whistle, and he blows that, so that kind of like temporarily immobilizes Blaster. And Mel Gibson has like this huge hammer thing, and then starts like hitting Blaster in the head with the hammer, and ends up knocking off his helmet. And then so Blaster's laying there on the ground. Mel Gibson like walks over to him, and it looks like he's gonna like finish him with the hammer. And then he sees his face and realizes he's like mentally handicapped. And then Master comes in from the crowd. He's like, "Oh, don't kill him." He's like, he has the mind of a child or whatever. So Mel Gibson spares him. But then Tina Turner's like flipping out. She's like, "No, no, you know the rules. Like you have to, you know, two men enter, one man leave. Like you have to kill him." So then somebody in the crowd ends up shooting him with like a crossbow and kills Blaster. So then Tina Turner's all mad at Mel Gibson because he broke the law. So she's like, "Okay, now you got to like face the wheel." So there's like this metal wheel with all these different outcomes on it. And so they spin it, and that determines Mel Gibson's fate. And his fate is to be exiled from Bartertown. So they basically, they tie him up, they put him on a horse, they put like a vial of water out in front of the horse, like suspended on like, a stick. So the horse is like going after the water but can't get it. And they put this big like paper mache like head over Mel Gibson's head so he can't see anything. And they just send the horse off into the desert. So horse goes way out into the desert, you know, fast forward, then the horse is collapsing because it's dehydrated and it's out in the middle of the desert. Uh, the horse ends up dying. Mel Gibson is just stranded out in the desert walking around, and then he's just collapses on the desert floor. And then he is found by a young girl. And the young girl, who's dressed kind of like a tribes person, you know. So she basically drags him back to this, settlement where there's like a tribe of kids. And, the kids are trying to revive Mel Gibson, and they end up until this point, he had long hair in the movie. They end up cutting his hair. And then when he wakes up, he doesn't know where he is, and the kids are all like yelling at him. And, there's like this kind of feeling out period of like, what's going on here? Like, who are these people? Why am I here? Et cetera, et cetera. So, the kids start talking and explaining to Mel Gibson what's going on, and they they believe that, you know, because the setting of this movie is like a post apocalyptic wasteland. So some type of, nuclear whatever happened, and like society was wiped out, and these are like the survivors. So these kids, they have some information that they piece together from stories or legends of like the previous world, and they think that Mel Gibson is this pilot named Captain Walker who is going to like take them back to the civilization. And like he's like, "No, no, I'm not who you think I am. Like I'm not Captain Walker." He's like, "Civilization's gone. Like that's all done with. Like all that's left is the wasteland." And they don't want to believe it. So like the one girl who is kind of like the leader of the pack there, she's like, no, we got to keep trekking on. We got to find this, that, and the other thing. So then I guess they trek out into the desert a little bit, and there's an old like commercial plane that's there, like, and they're all like cheering, like, oh, Captain Walker, take us back to. They call it like Tomorrow Land or something. And he like walks out there and looks at it, and he's just like, kind of like shakes his head and turns around because he's like, I can't do anything with this. Like, I'm not. That's a plane that's whatever. So like, that tribe of kids, they're just, that girl is like, hell bent on trying to find civilization again. So she leaves, but some of the kids stay behind, and Mel Gibson stayed behind, and they're like, oh, we gotta go after her. She just like went out into the desert, and we gotta save her. So Mel, he's starting to become the hero now. He's the hero to these kids. Like, he's the leader. He's whatever. So he goes out after the girl. He's able to find her, and actually, when he finds her, like, one of her party of people is actually in the process of being like swallowed by quicksand. So he saves them all, and then they're just out in the desert, and then they stumble back upon Bartertown. So then, for whatever reason, they go into Bartertown through like a sewage tunnel or some type of tunnel, and they infiltrate Bartertown, and then Master is being held captive down in the pig shit pit. He's in like a little cage, so they free him, and then they fight some of the bad guys there, and this and that and the other thing. And then there's like this old train that's there, and one of the slaves, one of the guys who's like friends with Mel Gibson now and all the kids, they all get on this train and leave Bartertown because there's like train tracks there still apparently. So they're hauling ass on this train, all of them, all the kids, some of the freed slaves, and Master. Well, Tina Turner wants Master because she thinks that he's important to Bartertown, and she needs him to like, help run Bartertown. Quick little side note: earlier in the movie, there's a part where there's kind of a power struggle between Master Blaster and Tina Turner because like Master Blaster, those guys were in charge of all the energy to the city. And like when Tina Turner did something that they didn't like, they would like turn off the city's energy. They called it an embargo. And I thought that was kind of interesting because that's kind of like, I feel like that's like a reference to like politics and like foreign policy in the 80s with like whatever, foreign relations. I just thought that was kind of interesting. And this movie came out in 1985, by the way. So, anyways, back to where we're at. They're on the train. They're escaping Bartertown. Tina Turner and all the bad guys, they have all these vehicles. So they freaking are chasing after them. And then there's this big, like, chase scene and like battle scene where all the vehicles versus the train and Mel Gibson, and they're all fighting and stuff. And then the train comes to the end of the tracks. They all get off the train, and they find this kid and this guy who are in like a subterranean like tunnel area. And they realize like this dude is a pilot and he has a plane. So they all get on the plane and they're trying to escape. And then there's kind of like a patch of desert that they're going to use as a runway. And you got the train on one side and then all the enemy vehicles on the other. And the pilot's like, there's not enough room here. There's not enough runway. And like Mel Gibson's like, oh, there will be. So Mel Gibson gets in a vehicle out in front of the plane and basically creates like a shield. And he just charges ahead with the plane behind him, and he like takes out the enemy vehicle so there's enough room for the plane to take off. So Mel Gibson stays behind, and all the kids and the pilot, and including Master, they all fly off. And at the end, Tina Turner encounters Mel Gibson out in the desert. She's like, you know, we meet again, Raggedy Man, or whatever, because she called him like Raggedy Man at the beginning of the beginning of the movie. And she's like, whatever, like, farewell, soldier, and she lets him live. And she just leaves. She just leaves him in the desert. So the end of the movie, the kids in the pilot, they all actually find a city again. That shows them in a city. So they actually do return to civilization somehow. And then at the end, they just show like Mel Gibson like walking through the desert by himself, and that's the end of the movie. So I know, like back in the day on TV, I remember the battle scene from Thunderdome, and like the scene of Bartertown. I remember watching all that. I don't really remember the end of this movie, so I don't think I ever saw that back in the day. But pretty cool movie, man. Like Mel Gibson's really good in it. So is Tina Turner. Um, Actually, the actor who plays Master was pretty good in it as well. Very nostalgic movie, very 80s movie, Um, pretty entertaining in 2026. I'd give it like a 7 out of 10, honestly. As far as movies goes today, like this is pretty good. It's a pretty good movie, and it was pretty cheap on DVD. The DVD that I bought was like literally from 1997. It was brand new. So that was pretty sweet. So yeah, I just wanted to make a video giving my thoughts on this. It's kind of a unique little viewing experience. I mean, again, I probably haven't seen this since the 90s, early 90s, possibly even late 80s. And it's a pretty cool movie, man. Like, and I like this one more than any of the other Mad Max movies. I watched some of the trailers for the other ones. I'm like, nah, I'm not interested in those. This is the one. This is my favorite. I think this is the best one. So hope you all enjoyed my thoughts on it. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button. And thank you for watching. Take care.